The whispers started in the morning shift, spreading through the Galactic Coalition station like cold wind through empty corridors. Commander Kyroth had arrived. 3 words that made diplomats check their schedules, made traders close their shops early, made even the hardened security officers find urgent business elsewhere. Hana Kim heard the whispers while shelving books in the archives. She was on a ladder, reaching for the high shelf where she kept the old Earth classics, when 2 station workers passed by outside. Their voices carried through the open doorway. "The silent blade is here." "On this station." "No. I heard she was halfway across the sector. I saw her myself. 7 feet tall. Black scales. Eyes like dying stars." Hana continued her work. She had been the head librarian on Sanctum Prime Station for 3 years now. In that time, she had learned that fear traveled faster than facts. People loved to talk about dangerous things from a safe distance. The archives were her sanctuary. Rows and rows of physical books from dozens of worlds. Data crystals containing the histories of extinct civilizations, and cultural artifacts that most people only saw in museums. The Coalition kept this station neutral ground, a place where all species could come to trade, negotiate, and learn. And Hana kept the archives as a place where anyone could come to read. She was 32 years old, thin and small even by human standards. Her black hair was always tied back in a simple knot. She wore the same style of clothes every day. Comfortable pants, a loose shirt, and a worn cardigan with deep pockets for her cataloging tools. Nothing about her drew attention, which was exactly how she liked it. Most humans who volunteered for deep space wanted adventure. They wanted to explore new worlds, meet exotic aliens, have thrilling experiences. Hana had volunteered because she wanted peace. Earth had been too loud, too crowded, too demanding. Out here, among the books and the silence, she could breathe. The day passed quietly. A few researchers came in looking for historical records. A young Tethian student needed help finding information about ancient trade routes. An elderly Morgothi scholar spent hours reading poetry from his homeworld, tears rolling down his face. Hana helped them all with the same gentle patience. She never rushed anyone. She never made them feel stupid for not knowing how to use the catalog system. She treated every visitor, regardless of their species or status, with respect. It had earned her a reputation. In 3 years, she had never turned anyone away. Evening came. The station's lights dimmed to simulate nighttime. Most of the shops and offices closed. The corridors emptied. Hana stayed late, as she often did. There was always more work to do. Books to catalog, shelves to organize, records to update. She was sitting at her desk, working on her tablet, when she heard the doors open. The archives had a special entrance, wide and tall to accommodate all species. The doors made a soft whisper when they slid apart. Hana looked up, ready to explain that they were closed for the night. The words died in her throat. The figure in the doorway was massive, 7 feet tall, maybe more. Her body was covered in scales that looked like polished black stone. Each scale caught the light and threw it back darker. She wore armor that seemed to be part of her body, organic metal that moved when she breathed. Her hands ended in claws that could tear through steel, but it was her eyes that caught Hana's attention. They glowed with a faint red light, like embers in a dying fire. Those eyes scanned the archives with the precision of a predator, checking every shadow, every corner, every possible threat. Commander Kyroth, the Silent Blade, the executioner who had carried out over 300 death sentences across 12 systems. The Valkyrie Empire's most feared enforcer. Hana should have been terrified. Any reasonable person would have been. But fear had never been her first response to things. Curiosity always came first. "We're officially closed," Hana said quietly. "But you're welcome to come in if you need something." Kirith stood frozen in the doorway. Her head tilted slightly, like she was trying to understand a language she had never heard before. Around the station, People ran from her. They avoided eye contact. They cleared hallways. They trembled. This human was offering her welcome. "You know who I am?" Kirath said. Her voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "I do," Hannah said. She set down her tablet and gave the executioner her full attention. "You're Commander Kirath. Would you like to sit down? I can make tea. I have several varieties." "Tea." Kirath repeated the word like it was foreign. She stepped into the archives. The doors whispered shut behind her. "You are not afraid." "Should I be?" Hannah asked. "Have you come to hurt me?" A long silence filled the space between them. Kirath's claws flexed. Her red eyes dimmed slightly, then brightened again. "No," she finally said. "Then there's nothing to be afraid of." Hannah replied. "Please, sit. The chairs near the window are reinforced. They can handle Velkari weight." Velkari weight." Kirath moved through the archives like she was walking through enemy territory. Every step was calculated. Every muscle was ready for combat. She sat in the chair Hannah had indicated, but she looked uncomfortable. Her body was trained for violence, not rest. Hannah made tea in the small kitchen area she had set up in the back. She had collected tea from a dozen worlds. Tonight she chose something mild from Earth, chamomile with honey. She brought 2 cups and set one in front of Kirath. "I don't drink," Kirath said. "That's fine. It's there if you change your mind." Hannah sat in a chair across from her, holding her own cup with both hands. "So, what brings an executioner to a library at night?" Another long silence. Kirath stared at the teacup. "This must remain secret," she finally said. "The archives have strict privacy rules," Hannah assured her. "What you say here stays here. That's a promise I make to everyone." Kirath's eyes met hers. For the first time, Hannah saw something in those glowing red depths that surprised her. Not anger, not cruelty, but uncertainty. Maybe even shame. "I need assistance," Kirath said. Each word seemed to cost her something. "I have never needed assistance before. I have always known my duty. Always followed my orders. Always completed my task. And now?" Hannah asked softly. "Now I am lost," Kirath admitted. "In 2 weeks, I have been ordered to execute a prisoner, a young Velkari named Taiyang. He is a poet, a writer. He spoke against the Empire's expansion wars. They say he is a traitor." Hannah set down her tea. "What do you say?" "I say," Kirath's claws scraped against the armrest of her chair. "I say I have read his words. I say his only crime is speaking truth. I say for the first time in my life, I do not believe the person I am ordered to kill deserves to die." The confession hung in the air between them. Outside, the station hummed with its endless mechanical heartbeat. Inside the archives, there was only silence and the weight of terrible knowledge. "I need to learn about mercy," Kirath said quietly. "Before I am forced to kill someone who should live. Before I become a weapon that destroys something precious. I need to know if there is another way." Hannah was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to one of the shelves. She ran her fingers along the spines of books, reading titles in the dim light. "The archives welcome all seekers of knowledge," she said. "No matter who they are, no matter what they've done, no matter what they're afraid of. If you're looking for answers, we'll look together. We'll look together. We'll look together. We'll look together." She pulled down a book. An old one, worn with age. She brought it back and set it on the table between them. "Let's start here," Hannah said. "And we'll see where the truth takes us." Kirath looked at the book, then at the human, then back at the book. Slowly, carefully, she reached out with one clawed hand and opened it to the first page. Outside, the station feared the executioner. Inside the archives, a human librarian and an alien killer began to read together in the quiet of the night. 3 nights passed before Kirath returned to the archives. Hannah had wondered, if she would come back at all. The executioner had stayed until late that first night, reading in silence. When she left, she had taken the book with her. Hana had never asked for it back. On the fourth night, Kirith appeared again when the station's corridors were empty. She carried the book carefully, like it was made of glass. Her red eyes seemed dimmer than before, tired somehow. "I read it twice," she said without greeting. The words kept changing their meaning. "That happens with philosophy," Hannah replied. She was organizing a new shipment of data crystals. "Would you like to talk about it?" Kirith sat in the same chair as before. The book was about moral courage, written by an Earth philosopher centuries ago. It discussed the difference between legal orders and ethical actions, between duty and conscience. "My people do not think this way," Kirith said. "We have laws. We have orders. We follow them. That is strength. That is honor." "And what about truth?" Hannah asked. "Truth is whatever the Empire says it is." Hannah set down her work. She pulled a chair closer to Kirith and sat. "Tell me about Taeyang. Tell me what his crime really was." Taeyang. So Kirith told her. The story came out slowly, like poison being drawn from a wound. Taeyang was young, only 23 in human years. He had been a student, studying the old poetry of their people. He had started writing his own poems, sharing them on public networks. His poems spoke about the cost of war, about soldiers who died for expansion that benefited only the rich, about families torn apart, about worlds burning while politicians grew wealthy. His words were beautiful and terrible and true. The Empire had ordered him arrested. They called his poetry sedition. They called his truth treason. And they had called Kirith to be his executioner. "I am bound by sacred oaths," Kirith explained. "When I was a child, they took me, tested me, found me suitable for executioner training. I gave up my name, my family, my future. I became a weapon for the Empire. If I refuse an order, I am killed. My entire bloodline is marked with dishonor. My family suffers for my weakness. Arjus." "That's not weakness," Hannah said. "That's control. They've built a cage around you, made of fear and duty. You do not understand Velkari culture." "Maybe not," Hannah admitted. "But I understand people, and I know that a system that punishes mercy is a broken system." She stood and walked to another shelf. Over the next hour, she brought book after book. Stories of humans who had faced impossible choices. Soldiers who refused to follow orders they knew were wrong. Whistleblowers who exposed corruption, knowing they would be punished. Kirith read about a human woman who had hidden refugees during a war, risking her life every day. About a man who had refused to build weapons, even though it cost him everything. About students who had stood in front of tanks. About ordinary people who became extraordinary because they chose truth over safety. "Your species is small," Kirith observed. "Weak. Short-lived. How do you find such courage?" "We're not courageous all the time," Hannah said honestly. "Most of us are scared most of the time. But we have this idea that keeps coming up in our history. We believe that every person has dignity. Every person deserves to be seen as a person, not just as part of a system. Even criminals? Even enemies? Especially them. Because if we only extend dignity to people we agree with, then it's not really dignity. It's just favoritism." Kirith was quiet for a long time. Her claws traced the words on the page in front of her. "You truly believe Taeyang deserves to live. A person you have never met. From a species that has conquered and enslaved others. I believe anyone whose only crime is telling the truth deserves to live," Hannah said. "Yes." The nights continued. Kirith came to the archives every evening when the station slept. She read everything Hannah gave her. Ethics, philosophy, history, stories of resistance and rebellion and redemption. and slowly, something changed in her. She started asking questions instead of making statements. She began to argue with the texts, engaging with ideas instead of just receiving orders. Her voice, always rough and hard, sometimes softened when she read certain passages aloud. "Why are you doing this?" Kirith asked one night. They had been reading for hours. "Helping me, teaching me. You gain nothing from this. If anyone discovers what we are doing, you could be arrested for interfering with Empire business." Hana considered the question. "I'm a librarian," she finally said. "I believe that knowledge should be shared. That truth should be accessible. That every person deserves the chance to learn and grow and change. You came here looking for answers. How could I turn you away? I am an executioner. I have killed hundreds. I have made families weep. I am everything you should fear. Weekay, 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 you were an executioner," Hana corrected gently. "Right now, you're a student. You're someone learning to ask difficult questions. That's not something to fear. That's something to encourage." Kirath's eyes glowed brighter. Hana had learned this meant strong emotion. "You are the first person in decades who has looked at me without terror, who speaks to me as if I am a person, not a weapon. I do not understand why this matters to me. But it does. Connection matters," Hana said. "Being seen as who you really are, not just what you're supposed to be. That's one of the most human needs there is. Maybe it's a Velkari need too. My people would call this weakness. Your people are wrong." The simple statement hung in the air. Kirith stared at Hana. Then, for the first time since they had met, she laughed. It was a rough, unused sound, like a machine starting after years of silence. "You are very small," Kirith said. "But you speak like someone who could challenge empires." "I'm just speaking the truth," Hana replied. "Someone wise once told me that truth is a weapon more powerful than any blade." "Who told you that?" "You did, about an hour ago. When you read that passage from Taeyang's poetry." Kirath looked down at the book in her hands. It contained Taeyang's complete works, smuggled to her by contacts who owed her favors. She had been reading them alongside Hana, trying to understand what made them so dangerous. "His words are beautiful," Kirath said quietly. "He writes about the stars the way others write about loved ones. About hope the way others write about treasure. He makes you feel things you thought were dead inside you. And for that, they want him executed," Hana said. "Yes. Do you still believe he deserves to die?" "No." The word was firm. "Final. But I do not know what to do. In 10 days, the execution is scheduled. It will be public. Broadcast across the Empire. If I refuse, they will kill me and send another executioner. Taeyang will die anyway. My refusal will accomplish nothing except my own death." Hana leaned forward. "Kirith, what if I told you there might be another way? Not just refusing, not just running, but actually changing something. There is no way to change this. The Empire has decided. Empires have changed before. Systems have fallen. Truth has a way of spreading once it gets loose." Hana's eyes were bright, with an idea forming. "You said the execution will be broadcast across the Empire?" "Yes. They want to make an example of him. Show what happens to those who speak against the government. Then we use their own plan against them," Hana said. "We make sure the whole Empire knows the truth about why Taeyang is really being executed. We expose the corruption. We turn their show of power into a show of injustice." Kirath's claws dug into the armrests of her chair. "That is impossible. You are talking about defying the Empire directly, about exposing powerful people, about starting a rebellion. I'm talking about telling the truth loud enough that people can't ignore it anymore," Hana corrected. "And yes, it's dangerous. It might not work. But doing nothing guarantees Taeyang dies, and nothing changes. This way. At least we tried." "We?" Kirith asked. You would risk yourself for this? Someone has to, Hana said simply. And you came to me asking to learn about mercy. Well, here's the lesson. Mercy isn't just feeling bad about something wrong, it's taking action to stop it. Even when the cost is high. Kirith stood up. Her massive frame made the archives feel smaller. She paced between the shelves, her mind clearly racing. If we do this, if we try this, we need help. Resources. Access to communication systems. Evidence that proves the corruption. This is not something two people can do alone. Then we find others, Hana said. She stood too. Her small human body determined despite its size. I know people on this station. Humans who understand that sometimes rules need to be broken for the right reasons. Other humans? Kirith seemed surprised. Why would they help? Because that's what humans do, Hana said with a small smile. We see someone in trouble, and we can't help but try to fix it. It's annoying sometimes, but it's also our greatest strength. Kirith looked at her for a long moment. You truly believe we can change this? I believe we have to try. Hana replied. Every book in this archives proves one thing. One person, choosing courage over comfort, has changed the course of worlds. You don't need to know what comes next. You just need to choose what kind of person you want to be. The executioner's hands trembled slightly. If I do this, there is no going back. I will be marked as a traitor. Everything I was, everything I have been, will end. Maybe, Hana agreed. Or maybe, you'll finally become who you were always meant to be. Outside the archives, the station continued its endless routine. Inside, two unlikely allies began planning a rebellion that would shake an empire. Hana had worked with 3 other humans on the station long enough to call them friends. She trusted them. But asking them to risk their lives was different from asking them to help catalog books. Nari was first. She was an engineer who maintained the station's communication arrays. 40 years old, with rough hands and a sharp mind. She came to the archives during lunch breaks to read technical manuals and old engineering texts. Hana found her in the maintenance tunnels, working on a power relay. I need your help with something dangerous, she said without preamble. Nari didn't even look up from her work. How dangerous? Could get us arrested. Could get us killed. Definitely gets us fired. Does it involve helping someone who doesn't deserve what's happening to them? Yes. Nari set down her tools and looked at Hana. I'm listening. They talked for an hour. Hana explained about Kirith, about Taeyang, about the plan to expose the truth during the execution broadcast. Nari's expression didn't change, but her hands kept moving, nervous energy needing an outlet. You're asking me to hijack Empire communication channels, Nari said finally, to broadcast information they want hidden, to basically declare war on one of the most powerful governments in the galaxy. Yes, Hana said simply. When do we start? Junho was the second. He worked in the medical bay, a young doctor who had come to deep space because he wanted to help people regardless of their species. He was quiet, thoughtful, and had steady hands that had saved countless lives. Hana found him in his office, reviewing patient files. She laid out the plan more carefully this time, knowing Junho would want to understand every detail before committing. You'll need someone who understands Velkari physiology, Junho said when she finished. If Kirith is injured during this, standard human medical knowledge won't help her, and Taeyang will need treatment too. He's been in detention for weeks. So you'll help? Hana asked. Junho removed his glasses and cleaned them slowly. I took an oath to do no harm. Sometimes that means taking action when others are being harmed. Sometimes it means standing up even when it's scary. He put his glasses back on. Yes, I'll help. Doyun was the hardest. He was a reformed smuggler who now worked as a cargo handler. He had a past he didn't talk about, and a debt to Hana that he had never properly explained. She had helped him find historical navigation charts once, and whatever he had done with them had changed his life. She found him in the cargo bay, inventorying shipments. When she approached, he immediately looked nervous. "Whatever you need, the answer is no," he said. I went straight. "I don't do illegal stuff anymore." Not even to save an innocent life?" Hana asked. Doyun set down his datapad. "That's not fair." "Nothing about this is fair," Hana agreed. "But I need someone who knows the station's hidden routes. Someone who can move people without being seen. Someone who understands how to work around security systems. You're asking me to use all the skills that got me arrested in the first place. I'm asking you to use those skills for something good." Doyun was quiet for a long time. He looked around the cargo bay, at the legitimate work he had built for himself. Then he sighed. "When my daughter asks me what I did with my life, I want to tell her I helped people. Not that I played it safe and looked the other way, when I could have made a difference." "You have a daughter?" Hana asked, surprised. "Not yet, but someday I hope to. And I want to be someone she can be proud of." He met Hana's eyes. "Tell me the plan." That night, all 5 of them met in the archives after closing. Kirith arrived last, moving through the shadows like she was born to them. She stopped when she saw 3 other humans in the room. "More humans," she said. "Why are all humans so determined to interfere with things larger than themselves?" "Because someone has to," Nari replied. "And we're too stupid to know when we're outmatched." Junho nodded. "Plus, we have a bad habit of caring about people we've never met. It's very annoying," Doyun added. "But here we are." Kairoth looked at Hana. "You brought them all into this?" "Ah, they brought themselves," Hana said. "I just told them the truth. Turns out humans are allergic to injustice. They spent hours planning." Nari explained how she could access the communication arrays, but she would need time and a distraction. Junho outlined what medical supplies would be needed and where he could set up an emergency treatment area. Doyun mapped out routes through the station's maintenance tunnels that security didn't monitor. Kyrith contributed her knowledge of Empire protocols, security procedures, and the layout of the detention center where Taeyang was being held. She also shared something else. Proof. "I have been gathering evidence for weeks," she said. "Messages between officials, financial records showing bribes, proof that Taeyang's arrest was ordered not by courts but by politicians he wrote about. I have enough to prove corruption. But I did not know what to do with it. We broadcast it," Hannah said. "During the execution, when the whole Empire is watching, they will try to stop the broadcast," Kirith warned. "The moment we begin, security will move to shut us down. We will have minutes at most. Then we make those minutes count," Nari said. "I can set up redundant channels. Route the signal through multiple relays. Make it harder to stop. I can help Taeyang once we free him," Junho added. "Get him stable enough to maybe even speak. If he's willing. Getting to the detention center is the hard part," Doyun said. "Security is heavy there. Multiple checkpoints. Biometric scanners." Kairoth's eyes glowed brighter. "I have clearance. As his executioner, I have access to the prisoner at any time. They expect me to visit him before the execution. It is part of the ritual. So we use that," Hana said. "You go in as the executioner, but instead of preparing him to die, you get him out." "With what army?" Doyun asked. "The detention center has guards, cameras, automated defenses. 1 executioner and 4 humans won't get far. We don't fight our way out," Hana said. "We use their own procedures against them." Kirith goes in officially. She transfers Taeyang to a secure medical facility for pre-execution examination. "That's you, Junho. You receive the prisoner, treat him, and then we move him through the maintenance tunnels before anyone realizes what's happening." Meanwhile, Nari continued, picking up the plan. "I start broadcasting the evidence. Once the truth is out there, it's harder for them to act. Public pressure becomes our shield." "They'll still come for us," Kyrith said. "General Huan is commanding the security forces. He is not a fool. Once he realizes what is happening, he will move to stop it with extreme force. Then we need to be ready to move fast, Doyun said. Have escape routes. Backup plans. Places to hide. They planned into the early morning hours. Every detail mattered. Every timing had to be perfect. One mistake would mean failure, arrest, or death. As the meeting ended and the others prepared to leave, Kirath pulled Hana aside. Why are they doing this? They do not know Taeyang. They do not know me. They gain nothing from this, except danger. That's what I've been trying to teach you, Hana said softly. Humans don't always calculate the benefit before helping someone. We see someone in trouble, someone being hurt unjustly, and something in us just says, no, this is wrong, we have to do something. It's not logical, it's not safe, but it's who we are. Your species is very strange, Kirath observed. We prefer persistent, Hana replied with a slight smile. Over the next 7 days, they prepared. Nari built back doors into the communication systems. Junho stockpiled medical supplies. Doyun mapped and tested every escape route. Hana gathered more evidence, more documents, more proof of the corruption that had condemned Taeyang, and Kirath trained them. She taught Hana basic self-defense, showed Junho how to stabilize a wounded Velkari, explained to all of them how to move, how to hide, how to survive if things went wrong. You are civilians, she told them during one training session. You are not warriors. But you have something warriors often lack. You have purpose that comes from belief, not from orders. That makes you dangerous in ways the Empire does not understand. On the 6th day, everything changed. General Huan summoned Kirath to his office. She went, maintaining the cold professional demeanor she had perfected over decades. Huan was an older Velkari, his scales dulled by age, but his eyes still sharp. He sat behind a desk that looked like a weapon, all sharp edges and cold metal. Commander Kirath, he said, I have received concerning reports about your behavior. Sir? Kirath kept her voice neutral. You have been seen entering the human archives. Repeatedly. Late at night. Alone. Huan's claws tapped against his desk. Why would my executioner need books? I was researching the prisoner's cultural background to better understand the nature of his crimes. Interesting. Huan's smile was dangerous. Because I had the same thought. I researched his crimes too. And I researched you. Your visits to the archives coincide with time spent with the head librarian, a human named Hana Kim. Kirath said nothing. Her training kept her face expressionless. The human has been accessing files about our judicial system, about political prisoners, about corruption in the Empire. Huan stood up. She has been corrupting you, Commander, filling your head with human weakness, making you doubt your duty. I do not doubt my duty, sir. Good. Because I am giving you a new order. Huan moved closer. You will execute Taeyang as scheduled. But first, you will execute the human librarian. For sedition against the Empire. You have 24 hours. Kirath felt something cold settle in her chest. Sir, the human is a neutral party. She works for the coalition, not, she is an enemy of the Empire, and you will kill her. Or I will begin to question whether you are also an enemy. Whether your entire bloodline should be investigated for treason. The threat was clear. Kirath bowed her head. Understood, sir. She left the office, walking normally. She completed her patrol duties. She spoke to no one. But when night came, and the station slept, she returned to the archives, one final time. Hana was alone, working late as always. She looked up when Kirath entered, and her smile faded when she saw the executioner's expression. They know, Kirath said. General Huan knows. He has ordered me to kill you within 24 hours. Hana went very still. Will you? Kirath's blade was in her hand before Hana could blink. The weapon hummed with energy, sharp enough to cut through steel. The executioner stood over the librarian. Death itself, made manifest. Have you decided what kind of person you want to be? Hana asked quietly. Her voice shook slightly, but she didn't look away. Kirith's blade trembled. For decades, she had never hesitated, never questioned, never failed to complete an execution. But she had never learned to read before. Never had someone treat her as a person instead of a weapon. Never understood that there was a choice. The blade lowered. Kirith's eyes dimmed with something that might have been tears, if Velkari could cry. My conscience says I have been a weapon for too long, she said quietly. It is time to be a shield. Hana stood up. Then we're out of time. We move now. Tonight, we save Taeyang, and we tell the truth. Consequences be damned. You understand we will probably die? Kirith asked. Probably, Hana agreed. But at least we'll die doing something that matters. The executioner and the librarian looked at each other. Then Kirith nodded. Call the others, she said. We begin the library rebellion tonight. The emergency call went out at midnight station time. 3 simple words sent to 3 different people. Library needs help. Nari arrived first, still wearing her maintenance coveralls. Junho came next, carrying a medical bag. Doyun was last, slightly out of breath from running. They all stopped when they saw Kirith standing in the center of the archives with her blade drawn. Easy, Hana said quickly. She's with us. But the plan has changed. We're out of time. General Huan knows we're planning something. He ordered Kirith to execute me. Did she? Doyun asked, eyeing the massive executioner nervously. Obviously not, Nari said, since Hana is still talking. So what now? Now we do everything tonight, Kirith said, before Huan realizes I have disobeyed. Before security tightens further. Before Taeyang is moved to an execution chamber we cannot access. Tonight? Junho looked shocked. We're not ready. We need at least 2 more days to— We're out of days, Hana interrupted. We go now with what we have, or we don't go at all. There was a moment of silence. 4 humans and 1 alien, facing an impossible task with inadequate preparation. Every logical assessment said they would fail. Well, Nari finally said, it's not the stupidest thing I've ever done. But it's close. Let's get started. They moved fast. Nari headed to the communication center, her credentials giving her access to the night shift. Junho prepared his medical bay, setting up equipment for a Velkari patient. Doyun disappeared into the maintenance tunnels to ensure their escape routes were clear. Kirith and Hana headed to the detention center. They walked openly through the corridors. The executioner in full armor, the librarian beside her carrying a datapad. An odd pair, but no one questioned an executioner's business. The detention center was a cold place. All metal and harsh lights. Guards stood at every checkpoint, their weapons ready. Kirith approached the first checkpoint with the confidence of someone who belonged. Commander Kirith, the guard said, scanning her credentials. What brings you here at this hour? Pre-execution ritual, Kirith replied. I wish to speak with the prisoner before his death. It is traditional. And the human? My assistant. She records the prisoner's final statement for the archives. The lie came easily. Hana held up her datapad as evidence. The guard hesitated, then nodded. Very well. Prisoner Taeyang is in cell block 7. Maximum security. They moved deeper into the detention center. More checkpoints. More guards. Each time, Kirith's credentials and cold authority got them through. Hana tried to look official, though her heart was beating so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Cell block 7 was the deepest level. The cells here held the most dangerous prisoners. Political threats, assassins, war criminals, and one young poet. Taeyang's cell was at the end of a long corridor. The door was thick metal with a small window. Kirith approached and looked through. The young Velkari inside was thin. Too thin. His scales were dull from malnutrition. His eyes, which should have glowed bright with youth, were dim. He sat on a metal bench, staring at nothing. "Open the cell," Kirith ordered the guard stationed there. "Sir, protocol requires. I am his executioner. I do not need protocol. I need the cell open." "Now." The guard complied. The door slid open with a heavy thud. Kirith entered. Hana followed. The door closed behind them, with a sound like a tomb sealing. Taeyang looked up. When he saw Kirith, recognition and resignation filled his face. "You are the silent blade. You have come to prepare me for death." "No," Kirith said quietly. "I have come to free you." Taeyang blinked, confused. "What? Your execution is based on lies. Your only crime is truth. I will not be the weapon that silences you." Kirith looked at Hana. "This human taught me that following orders and doing what is right are not always the same thing." Taeyang's eyes moved to Hana. "You are human. Why would you risk yourself for me?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Hana said simply. "And because your words deserve to be heard, not silenced." "I do not understand humans," Taeyang said. But he stood up. "How do we escape? This facility has dozens of guards. Automated defenses. We will be caught before we reach the exit." "We do not use the exit," Kirith said. "We use medical transfer protocols. You are being taken for pre-execution health screening. Standard procedure." She turned to the door and signaled. The guard opened it. "We are transferring the prisoner to medical for examination. Authorization code Kirith 779. The guard checked his system. Everything showed proper authorization. Kirith had used her clearance codes to make the transfer appear legitimate. "Confirmed." "Commander, do you need an escort?" "No, I am sufficient." They moved through the detention center with Taeyang between them. The young Velkari was weak, but walked steadily. To any observer, it looked like a normal, pre-execution procedure. The executioner delivering a prisoner for final medical checks. They reached the medical bay without incident. Junho was waiting. His eyes widened when he saw how thin Taeyang was. "Get him on the table," Junho said, immediately shifting to doctor mode. "How long has he been without proper food?" 3 weeks, Taeyang answered. "They wanted me weak for the execution. Easier to control. Well, you're safe now. Let me check your vitals." While Junho worked, Hana checked in with Nari through a secure channel. "Status? I'm in the communication center." Nari's voice came through. "But there's a problem. The systems are more locked down than I expected. I can get us maybe 5 minutes of broadcast before they shut us down. Maybe less. 5 minutes has to be enough," Hana said. "Also, there's movement in the security center. More guards than usual. I think they suspect something. See, one tellsness. See, one tellsness condiment. One tellsness condiment tellsness. Then we go now. Start the broadcast the moment I give the signal." Hana turned to the others. Junho had Taeyang stabilized and was giving him nutrient supplements. Kirith stood by the door, watching for threats. Doyun had just arrived through a maintenance tunnel. "Routes are clear," Doyun reported, "but that won't last. Once the alarm goes out, they'll flood the tunnels with security. Then we make sure the alarm does not go out until we are ready," Kirith said. "What is the signal?" Hana held up a data crystal containing all the evidence they had gathered. Proof of corruption. Taeyang's writings. Communication records showing the political conspiracy. Everything. The signal is the truth, Hana said. Once Nari broadcasts this, the whole empire will know why Taeyang was really being executed. They'll know the system is broken. They will also know we are responsible, Kirith said. There is no going back from this. "I know," Hana said. She looked at each of them. Nari, monitoring systems from the communication center. Junho, standing protectively near his patient. Doyun, ready to lead them through hidden passages. Kirath, who had chosen conscience over duty. Anyone who wants to leave. This is your last chance, Hana said. I won't think less of you. This is asking too much. Nobody moved. Junho actually laughed. Too late for second thoughts now. Besides, my mother always said I should stand up for what's right, even when it's scary. My daughter I hope to have someday would never forgive me if I ran now, Doyun added. Nari's voice came through the communicator. I didn't come this far to chicken out. Let's shake an empire. Kirath's eyes glowed bright. I have spent my life being a weapon. Tonight, I choose to be a person. Whatever comes next, I face it with honor. That is truly mine. Hana nodded. She connected to Nari's channel. Send it. Broadcast everything. Now. Across the station, in the communication center, Nari's fingers flew over her controls. Codes she had spent days preparing activated. Back doors opened. Security protocols bypassed. And then, suddenly, every screen on every device across 12 systems lit up with the same message. People of the Velkari Empire. You have been told that Taeyang is a traitor. You have been told his execution is justice. You are about to watch the truth instead. The broadcast began. Taeyang's poetry appeared on screens. His words about the cost of war, the suffering of civilians, the corruption of officials. Then came the evidence. Financial records showing bribes. Messages between politicians ordering his arrest. Proof that his crime was not treason, but honesty. And then came video. Kirath, standing in the medical bay, speaking directly to the camera Hana held. I am Commander Kirath, called the Silent Blade. For 20 years, I have served as executioner. I have never questioned an order, never hesitated, never failed. But tonight, I refuse. Taeyang's execution is not justice. It is murder to silence truth. I will be a weapon no longer. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. Security forces mobilized. General Huan's furious voice echoed through communication channels, ordering all units to the medical bay. Time to move, Doyun said, opening the maintenance tunnel access. Now, they ran. Kirath carried Taeyang, who was still too weak to move quickly. Doyun led them through passages most people did not know existed. Junho and Hana followed, carrying medical equipment and data crystals. Behind them, security forces flooded the medical bay. They found it empty. The fugitives had vanished into the station's hidden arteries. This way, Doyun urged, leading them down a narrow passage. 3 more turns, and we reach the emergency shuttle bay. They will have it guarded, Kirath warned. Then we fight through, Doyun said. They emerged from the tunnels near the shuttle bay. Just as Kirath predicted, guards were everywhere. General Huan stood at the center, his face twisted with rage. Commander Kirath, Huan called out, surrender the traitors, and I will make your death quick. Continue this foolishness, and you all suffer. Kirath set Taeyang down gently. She drew her blade. Hana stood beside her, unarmed but unafraid. Junho and Doyun flanked them. 5 against dozens. Your move, General, Kirath said. Huan raised his hand to order the attack. But before he could speak, every screen in the shuttle bay lit up with incoming transmissions. Thousands of them. Then millions. The broadcast had reached the Empire, and the Empire was responding. General Huan, a voice came through the official channels. This is Coalition Command. Stand down immediately. You are under investigation for war crimes and corruption. Any action against the individuals in your custody will be considered a hostile act. Huan froze. His forces looked uncertain. The truth was out. The whole galaxy was watching. And in that moment of hesitation, everything changed. The standoff lasted 3 hours. General Huan refused to lower his weapons. Coalition peacekeepers surrounded the station, but could not board without triggering an interstellar incident. Kirath and her group remained trapped in the shuttle bay, protected only by the eyes of the galaxy watching through broadcasts. During those 3 hours, something remarkable happened. The truth spread like fire through dry grass. Across 12 systems, citizens who had never questioned their government began to ask uncomfortable questions. Students organized protests. Workers walked off their jobs. Even soldiers started questioning their orders. Taeyong's poetry was everywhere. His words about hope, about justice, about the cost of silence. People read them and saw their own lives reflected back. They realized that if speaking truth could get a young poet executed, then something was deeply wrong with their empire. Other executioners began to speak out. Some announced they would refuse unjust orders. Others revealed their own doubts about past executions. The system that had relied on fear and obedience started to crack. Inside the shuttle bay, Hana sat beside Taeyong. The young Valkyrie was regaining strength thanks to Junho's treatment. His eyes, which had been so dim in the cell, now glowed with renewed life. "Why did you do this?" Taeyong asked her quietly. "You could have lived your life safely. Read your books. Stayed away from politics. Why risk everything for someone like me?" "Because I'm a librarian," Hana said. "I believe in the power of words. Your words deserve to be heard, not buried. And because once you know something is wrong, you have to choose. Stay silent and be safe. Or speak up and maybe change something." "You are very small for someone who challenges empires," Taeyong observed. "I get that a lot," Hana replied with a tired smile. "But size doesn't matter when you have truth on your side, and friends who are willing to stand with you." Kirath stood near them, her blade still drawn but lowered. "I do not know what happens next, but I know I made the right choice. For the first time in my life, I chose based on conscience instead of orders. Whatever punishment comes, I face it without regret." "You taught me something important," Hana told the executioner. "I always believed books could change minds. But you proved that people can change too. Even when everything in their life tells them to stay the same, they can choose differently. You showed me there was a choice to make." Kirath replied. "I had forgotten that was possible." Finally, after those long 3 hours, the situation broke. The Valkyrie Empire's government fractured under the weight of public outrage. Reform politicians seized the moment. Emergency sessions were called. General Huan's supporters lost their positions. Coalition peacekeepers boarded the station with permission from the new transitional government. They took Huan into custody. His guards, seeing which way the wind was blowing, surrendered without fight. Kirath and her group were also taken into custody, but it was protective rather than punitive. They were moved to a secure location while the galaxy tried to figure out what to do with them. The trial came 3 months later. It was held on neutral ground, broadcast to every system. Kirath stood accused of breaking her sacred oaths. Hana and the other humans faced charges of interfering in sovereign empire affairs. Taeyong was technically still a convicted traitor, but something had changed. The court was not stacked with empire loyalists. Representatives from dozens of species sat in judgment, including humans who understood the concept of civil disobedience. The evidence was reviewed. Taeyong's poetry was read aloud in full. The corruption was documented and verified. Witnesses came forward, other victims of political persecution, families torn apart by unjust executions, soldiers ordered to commit atrocities. One by one, testimonies painted a picture of a system that had valued control over justice. And one by one, those same testimonies praised the courage of an executioner who had said, "No." A coalition elder spoke during the proceedings. "We see something interesting in this case. We see how one species humans have a particular gift. They see individuals instead of systems. They ask moral questions that others forget to ask. They challenge authority not from a desire for chaos, but from a belief that every person deserves dignity. The elder looked at Hana. This librarian could have stayed silent. She chose to speak. She chose to help. That is the human way. They are small. They are weak. They live such short lives, but they burn bright with moral conviction. They remind us all what we should be. Taeyang was asked to speak. He stood before the court, his scales shining with health restored, his eyes bright. I wrote poetry because I saw suffering and could not stay silent, he said. I accepted that my words might cost my life. But I never imagined they would start a movement for change. That happened because one human believed words mattered enough to risk everything, and because one executioner remembered she was a person before she was a weapon. He turned to Kyrith. You saved my life. But more than that, you showed my people that we can change, that we can choose conscience over comfort, that we can be better than we are. Thank you. The verdict took days to decide. When it finally came, it was unprecedented. General Huan and his co-conspirators were found guilty of corruption, unlawful detention, and abuse of authority. They faced long prison sentences. Taeyang was pardoned completely. His poetry was recognized as protected speech. He was offered asylum anywhere in coalition space, or safe return to a reformed Velkari homeworld. Kairoth was stripped of her executioner status, but she was not punished. Instead, the court recognized her as the first Velkari conscientious objector. Her choice was classified as an act of conscience, not treason. She was free to go wherever she wished. The humans, Hana, Nari, Junho, and Doyun, were cleared of all charges. They were commended for upholding coalition values of justice and truth. Several governments offered them honors. They declined them all. We were just doing what was right, Hana told the reporters who swarmed them after the verdict. Anyone would have done the same, but they did not, a reporter pressed. Hana thought about it. Because we could. Because we had the chance to help and the ability to act. What else would you do in that situation? Stay quiet? Look away? That's not who we are as humans. We see someone in trouble, we help. It's that simple. 6 months after the trial, Hana stood in the archives once again. But things had changed. The archives had tripled in size. Donations poured in from across the galaxy. New staff had been hired. And there was a new section. Prominently displayed, the Library of Conscience. It contained stories of moral courage from every species. Tales of people who had chosen right over easy. Documents from whistleblowers and truth-tellers. Poetry and art from voices that had been silenced and were now heard. Kirath worked there. The former executioner had found a new calling, teaching young people about ethics, about the weight of choices, about the importance of questioning authority. She was a powerful teacher precisely because of her past. You understand what it means to follow orders without thinking, students would say. Yes, Kairoth would reply. And I understand the cost, both of following them and of finally refusing. That is why you must learn to think for yourselves, before someone makes you into a weapon you never wanted to be. Taeyang visited often. He was working on a new collection of poetry, this one about transformation and hope. He and Kirath had become unlikely friends, the poet and the executioner, bound together by the night that changed everything. The other humans had returned to their jobs but were different. Nari had been promoted to head of communications. Junho had opened a clinic that treated any species, free of charge. Doyun had started a foundation to help reformed criminals build new lives. We saw what ordinary people could do when they chose to act, Doyun explained at the foundation's opening. Now, I want to help others find their own courage. One evening, Hana was organizing new arrivals when she heard the archive's door open. She looked up and saw a young Velkari entering nervously. They were small, barely adult, and their scales trembled with anxiety. Excuse me, they said quietly. I need help. Hana set down her work and smiled gently. Of course. What are you looking for? The young Velkari glanced around, making sure they were not overheard. I am a soldier. I have been given orders. Orders to remove people from their homes. Families. Children. The orders are legal, but I know they are wrong. I do not know what to do. I was told. I was told you helped an executioner once. That you taught her about choosing conscience over duty. Hana's heart ached with recognition. This was how change continued. One person at a time. Finding the courage to question, to doubt, to choose differently. You came to the right place, Hana said. Let me tell you a story. It's about an executioner who learned to ask for help, and about how one choice can echo across the galaxy. She gestured to a chair. The young soldier sat. Kirith, hearing the conversation, came over to join them. I was once like you, Kirith said. I thought I had no choice. I thought my duty was everything. I was wrong. Kirith said in, by rather Menderning. Kirith said in, one said in, together, the librarian and the former executioner began to teach. They pulled books about civil disobedience, about moral courage, about the long history of people who had stood up to unjust systems. They talked late into the night, just as they had months before. The young soldier listened, asked questions, struggled with fear and duty and conscience. By the time they left, they had not made a decision, but they had something they did not have before. Knowledge that there was a decision to make. Will they choose right? Kirith asked after the soldier left. I don't know, Hana admitted. But they know it's a choice now. They know they're not alone. They know there's help if they need it. That's what we can give people. Not answers, but the tools to find their own answers. You gave me those tools, Kirith said. You gave me books and questions and patience. You treated a killer like a person. You changed my life. We changed each other's lives. Hana corrected. You taught me that even the most fearsome weapon can become a shield. That's worth remembering. They stood together in the archives, surrounded by books and data crystals and the accumulated wisdom of thousands of civilizations. Outside, the station continued its endless cycle. Ships came and went. Species interacted. The galaxy turned. But inside the archives, something special was happening. People were learning, questioning, growing, choosing to be better than they were. A small human and a massive Velkari, working side by side, proof that the most unlikely friendships can spark the greatest changes. Hana returned to her desk and opened a new file. She began to write, documenting everything that had happened. Future historians would want to know how an empire began to reform, how a poet survived his execution, how an executioner learned mercy. But Hana wrote it as a simpler story. The story of a librarian who believed in the power of knowledge. The story of 5 people who chose courage over comfort. The story of how asking for help can be the bravest thing a person does. She titled it, The Night the Silent Blade Found Her Voice. Years later, that account would become one of the most requested documents in the archives. Students from dozens of species would read it and learn that change is possible. That one person's choice matters. That speaking truth to power is dangerous and necessary and worth it. But that night, Hana simply wrote. Kirith organized books nearby, moving with a grace that came from purpose rather than programming. And in the silence of the archives, surrounded by the stories of countless acts of courage, they both found peace. The executioner had become a teacher. The librarian had become a symbol. And together, they had proven something the galaxy needed to learn, that the most powerful weapon is not a blade, or a gun, or an army. It is truth, freely shared. It is conscience, bravely followed. It is ordinary people choosing to do extraordinary things because they cannot imagine doing anything else. The archive's door opened again. Another visitor seeking knowledge, another person asking questions, another chance to light a small flame that might grow into something that changes worlds. Hana looked up and smiled. Welcome to the archives. How can I help you? And the work continued. One person at a time. One question at a time. One choice at a time. Building a better galaxy. One shared story at a time.